Hi everyone, this is Christy Rich. I am a holistic healer, I'm a health educator, and I am a medium. And I've been doing this series on YouTube to empower you with your health and wellness at this time of the coronavirus. So I hope you've been enjoying this video series. Today, the topic is, what is a virus? So this is a very important topic, okay? And there's a lot of confusion about it. So everyone knows that the coronavirus is spreading, the numbers are going up, the fatalities are going up, and yet I've been asking people if they understand what a virus is, and they don't. They don't know what it is. So let's break it down because it's very, very important. And I just want to start this video to let everyone know, of course, I'm not a scientist. I don't claim to be a scientist. I am a healer and I'm a health educator. I'm an avid researcher. I do a lot of research, and that is how I overcame my own chronic health condition, but I'm not a scientist. So I have been doing a lot of research, and since I'm very intuitive, I can tap into which articles are the best. So this is an article, this is some information that was passed on to me, and this is from a physician whose daughter is assistant professor in infectious diseases at Johns Hopkins University. So this is very good information, so I'm going to go ahead and read this because it's very, very important. So, the virus is not a living organism, okay? This is very, very important for people to understand. A lot of people think that viruses are alive, and that's why they're spreading, because they're alive and they are in motion. But they're not. They're not living. Okay, let's go on. So it's not a living organism, but a protein molecule, DNA, covered by a protective layer of lipid, fat, which, when absorbed by the cells of the ocular, nasal, or buccal mucosa, changes their genetic code, mutation, and convert them into aggressor and multiplier cells. Since the virus is not a living organism, but a protein molecule, it is not killed, but decays on its own. The disintegration of time depends on the temperature, humidity, and type of material where it lies. The virus is very fragile. The only thing that protects it is a thin outer layer of fat. That is why any soap or detergent are the best remedies, because the foam cuts the fat. That is why you have to rub so much for 20 seconds or more in order to kill off the virus. Okay, so make sure it foams up. Make sure you do it for at least 20 seconds. And she goes on to say, by dissolving the fat layer, the protein molecule disperses and breaks down on its own. Heat melts fat. That is why it is so good to use water above 77 degrees Fahrenheit, of course, for washing hands, clothes, and everything. Okay, make sure the water is very, very hot to kill it off. In addition, hot water makes more foam, and this makes it more useful. And then she recommends using alcohol, rubbing alcohol, okay? That helps to dissolve fat. And she goes on, but that's more about tips. So that really gives an idea of what a virus is, okay? It's not alive. It's not living. So very, very important to understand this. So I'm going to break down some myths today. I'm going to talk about some controversy. I'm just going to put it all on the table and let you decide what you think is happening, okay? So, as I mentioned, I've been talking to a lot of people, trying to understand their understanding of what's going on with the coronavirus and what a virus is. And I realized that the media hasn't really been talking too much about the cause. They're not focusing on the cause of the coronavirus. Why did it happen to begin with? So as we know, with every illness, there's always a cause. There's always a root cause. And since I'm a holistic healer, I believe that if you understand the root cause, then you can treat the illness. And you can treat it very, very quickly, because once you understand, you know how to target, you know what steps to take. But they haven't been talking about the cause. And I found that very interesting. So I started to do some research, and I found out there are two theories about the cause of a virus in general. So not specifically the coronavirus, but what is the cause of a virus, period. And the most common belief is that viruses come from animals. Animals have viruses, and then they spread them to humans. So animals are sick, They catch a virus and then they pass it on to us. We then have a virus, we then spread it. So it is a belief that it comes from animals to begin with, and then it crosses among different animal species until we get it and we get sick, okay? And then we have to treat it. But I've been doing some research and there is another theory, okay? So the other theory is that viruses are not caused by animals. It's not from the spread of contracting it from an animal, but instead viruses happen within the body. So the belief is that when we become overloaded with toxins and our world is becoming more and more toxic, we have pollution, we have mercury in our water in the oceans, which then is absorbed by the little fish, and then the bigger fish eat the little fish, and then they contain mercury, and then we buy tuna and swordfish, and we get sick. We get heavy metals in our system, okay? There's smoking, there is pesticides on our produce, there is so much going on. Chemicals on our body care products, amalgam fillings we have in our teeth, the list goes on. So we are in a very toxic environment right now, and our liver was never designed to filter out chemicals. No, the liver was designed to help us to break down fat, to help us to digest food, but it was never designed to process chemicals because chemicals are always man-made, all right? So the function of the liver was to help to break down any bacteria, to help fight off viruses, to help out anything that was harmful for the body, to release it and to get it out, okay? Get it out as soon as possible so that the body could restore itself to proper health. Great, so our liver is very important. It is crucial for us, but these days we are, again, bombarded by chemicals, fragrances. People are doing drugs and drinking, which again toxify the liver. So the belief from these scientists is that the liver becomes overloaded. It cannot process all these toxins that it has to get rid of in order to restore the body to health, and then it creates a virus. A virus is then composed of the toxic materials, and it's trying to release it out of the body. And in order to do so, you develop symptoms. You develop symptoms such as a fever, because the body is trying to sweat out the chemicals out of your body, okay? So other symptoms as well, coughing, all the symptoms you can think of when you have a sinus infection or the flu, etc. So that is the belief. So it is the belief then, if you were to then detoxify your liver, that then you would then return to health. If you boost your immune system by eating good food, not eating the processed food or the sugar or the fast food, but whole foods, organic produce, really being mindful of what you're putting into your body and removing all the bad toxins around you, trying to stay away from, pollution or fragrances or cleaning products, toxic cleaning products in the air, then you will be well. So again, it's all about mindfulness, about what we're putting into our body, because anything we consume, anything we touch, again, it goes into our body, into our bloodstream. So there's two very, very different, very different points of view about what causes a virus. And to me, that is so amazing, because I would think, well, isn't this just common biology? Isn't this common science, what a virus is? We've had viruses for hundreds of years, so how can this be possible that we still don't know the cause of viruses? How is that possible? So let's go back to the coronavirus. There has been some talk about the cause of the coronavirus. For some, they do believe it comes from bats. They do believe that it comes from humans having exposure to bats who have this virus, okay? So as I mentioned again, if you are a holistic practitioner, you do believe there is a root cause. There is a reason why every illness begins. So even if you were to believe that it comes from bats and it was spread to humans, still, how did the bats get it? Where did the bats get the virus from? And some people may say, oh, from another animal. And I would say, well, where did that animal get that from? So again, it's very important to know the root cause so that you can stop it. And I do believe, my personal opinion, that is why we haven't stopped this illness quicker, is because we didn't understand what the root cause was. So let's go back to bats. If it was bats, and I also want to explain, I almost read the whole sheet from the physician's daughter, who's the assistant professor at Johns Hopkins, and she does say more about viruses, okay? So very important that you understand, yes, it's not living. And if you understand that it's not living, then you also understand that it cannot move and travel on its own, okay? It doesn't have a brain, it doesn't have a digestion system, it doesn't have any wings, it doesn't have any way to move. So the only way we can get a virus is if somebody sneezes, if somebody coughs, if somebody sweats, and then we get that onto ourselves. So if somebody sneezes onto us in our face, okay, we breathe it in, we can get a virus. If somebody is sweating and the sheets are full of sweat and we touch that material and then put our hand to our nose or to our mouth, then we can get that virus, okay? So it's only when somebody actually releases the virus, releases the liquid out into the air and it lands on us that we will get a virus. It's not airborne, it doesn't move on its own, it's not hanging out, living in the air, waiting for us to walk through, okay? So it's not alive. The only way you can get it is by sneezing, is by sweat, is by sneezing, sweat, what did I say? Coughing, coughing. Okay, only by those three, or, touching somebody who has the virus, touching the actual virus itself, and then again, putting your hands into your mouth or breathing in, okay? That's the only way you can get it, all right? So very, very important to understand that even if you were to touch a virus, it doesn't absorb into the skin, okay? Again, you have to really put it in there for you to have it. So if you touch a surface that has a virus on it and then you wash your hands, you'll be fine because, as they said, hot water, soap and water, that's all you need. You don't need any hand sanitizers. You don't need any antibacterial. All you need is soap and water and warm water, and then it will go away, okay? So if you believe that it came from bats, that would mean that a bat either had to sneeze, cough, or sweat on someone for them to get the virus, okay? And does that seem possible? Does that seem possible that a bat would go around coughing and sneezing and then just happen to cough and sneeze on a human? No. I mean, do bats even cough and sneeze? I don't think so. Not that I know. Again, I'm not an expert on bats, so I don't know that with 100% certainty, but I do know that bats do not sweat, okay? And I do know that bats don't go around just biting people, okay? That's from movies, that's from vampire movies. Bats stay away from people. Bats do not want to be around us. They do not want to land on our shoulders or bite us. That's a fallacy, okay? So if you think we get it or we got the virus because somebody got bit by a bat, the likelihood of that is very, very low, okay? So again, does this seem like a possibility? Does it seem like a likely possibility that a bat either coughed or sneezed or sweat on someone, even though bats cannot sweat, or bit someone? So if it bit someone, it must have been rabid. So it must have been rabid, and it must have had a virus, and it must have come close enough to actually land on somebody and bite them. I don't think so. Bats have very sensitive, what do they call it? Echolocation, where they use sound waves. They use sound waves to know how close they are to other objects and other living beings, right? So they don't want to be anywhere near us. Have you ever walked around and gotten smacked by a bat? No, I've seen many bats over my lifetime. I've never run into a bat. I've never gotten bitten by a bat. Okay? And as far as I know, again, I don't know cultures all around the world. I don't know anybody who eats bats. Okay? It's not a delicacy that I've heard of people eating bats and then contracting the virus because they ate a diseased bat. Okay? So it seems very unlikely to me. So again, I'm surprised at this idea has been going around, and it's so common, it's so well accepted that, oh yes, they say it must have happened with bats, and so I believe them. Of course, I should believe whatever they say. But for me, it seems very unlikely. So not only that, but if bats were spreading it around, how come we haven't heard of so many bats getting sick right now? How come we haven't heard of thousands of bats dying all around the world, right? There's thousands of people who are contracting this virus. There's thousands of people who are dying, but we don't hear anything about the animals. We don't hear anything about thousands of animals all around the world suddenly becoming very, very sick and just dying off in people's backyards. There's no mention at all in the news of animals being sick at this time. Not wild animals and not domestic animals. I haven't heard anything on the news of pets contracting the virus. I haven't heard anything about pets contracting the virus who had owners who had the virus. So again, it really seems to go with this other theory that I heard, that viruses do not spread among different species, okay? Bats and humans, very different species. We're not the same species. So again, let's just put all the pieces down. I'll let you decide, but I just want to really present to you what has been said about viruses and what has been said about the coronavirus so that we have some understanding, so we can really dive into it and think it through. Think it through what makes sense, because to me, the bat theory doesn't make any sense. If the bats were sick and they made us sick, then wouldn't they have made other bats sick before if it's highly contagious? If it's contagious to us, wouldn't it be as contagious to bats? And if bats can pass it on to us, can't they pass it on to other animals too? How come we don't hear about any other animals who are just dropping dead all of a sudden? Okay, so animals are not social distancing. Animals are not washing their hands and their bodies every single time they've been next to another animal to make sure they don't get the virus. Okay, they don't have access to soap and water, they don't know to social distance, and yet we don't hear anything about animals around the world suddenly getting very, very sick and dying. If this was the case, the animals were spreading it just as much as humans, we would hear about it. Okay? And not only that, animals, again, don't have the luxury of what we have as humans. So if we get sick with the virus, we get to stay home and rest. Animals in the wild cannot rest, okay? They cannot take medication to get better quicker. Instead, it is the survival of the fittest. So animals must be as strong as possible in order to survive. So if animals are getting this virus all around the world, what would happen? They would be too sick to go out and to hunt and to get food that they need. All right? The other animals who are stronger would see that this animal is sick and they would wait for the moment to attack. Or the animal would pass before being attacked. So we would be able to see more dead animals around. It would be visible to the eye. So if the animal does get attacked, again, it is survival of the fittest. If they're not strong enough to run away and are attacked by a predator, what's going to happen? Okay, the predator will eat that animal. The predator will put its claws into the animal. It will put its teeth into the animal. And if it is a sick animal with this virus that is highly contagious, what will happen? If you have your claws in, if you have your teeth in, if you're in there with the virus, the animal will then contract the virus. And then that animal will then spread it on to other animals. So this would have caused thousands of animals, even more than humans, to become sick and have this virus. But we have heard nothing about animals around the world being sick right now. So isn't that interesting if it does come from animals, that no animals are having any problems right now. They're just passing it on to us. So again, I just want all of us to think through the information we're being given logically, see if it makes sense. Okay, so to go back to the other theory was that our world has become so toxic, our livers are so toxic, we then can't process these man-made chemicals we were never meant to filter out of our system. And then we develop symptoms to help the body to try to release it, to get it out. and then it becomes contagious once we cough, once we sneeze, once we sweat, then we pass it on to others, especially if others are not being cautious and washing their hands, if they are then putting their hands into their mouth or inhaling once they're putting their hands to their face, then they will contract it and then they will spread it. So to me, that seems to make a lot more sense. That makes a lot of sense because I had heavy metal toxicity. That was the illness that I had for 15 years. It was misdiagnosed, and I had the same symptoms. I had fevers all the time, and I didn't understand why I had fevers all the time, but it was my body trying to get rid of the heavy metals. And heavy metals should never be in the body. Heavy metals are toxic for the body. So my body was trying to regulate, to get it out, but with heavy metals, you cannot sweat out heavy metals. You cannot pee out heavy metals. You must have something to chelate, to attach, to draw the heavy metals out, okay? So once I saw that the symptoms were similar, viruses and heavy metal toxicity, that really made me question, that really made me think, okay, are they giving us the full story? And why are they not giving us the full story? So there is another area I want to bring up, and that is the swine flu. Okay, so the swine flu happened in 2009. I believe this is also why so many people believe that viruses come from animals. So the swine flu happened in 2009, and if you were around at that time, then you are familiar that a lot of pigs got sick. Okay, they developed a terrible flu. And these were pigs that were not in the wild, but they were bred. They were bred to be eaten. So what happened was they were in this environment. You probably have seen some documentaries or some pictures of the conditions that pigs are in today. It's terrible, it's atrocious. And you may be familiar that pigs eat anything. Pigs are not picky. Pigs just eat anything. So these people who were breeding the pigs to make a profit, to sell the meat, they were feeding them trash. They were feeding them garbage. They didn't care. You know, they had all these pigs to feed. Pigs would eat anything anyway. They had to fatten them up. They wanted them to be as plump as possible. So they were basically just giving them discarded food, just scraps, just leftovers of food that no one else wanted. And the pigs didn't care. The pigs still ate all the food. But what happened was that the food basically was so poor that the animals got food poisoning. Okay, they developed a lot of bacteria from all this food they were consuming. So they got sick from that, and then these breeders, they got really worried, and they said, we've got to sell this meat. We can't have them be so sick. So then they shot them up with antibiotics. Okay? And antibiotics, of course, in large dosages are a toxin. So what happened was they were very, very sick from eating very poor quality food, not getting good nutrition, and then they were given a very large dose of antibiotics to clear out their system so they wouldn't have any bacteria, so they could then sell the meat later to people without people getting sick. Because if people got sick from eating the meat, of course they would be sued, and they didn't want to be sued, they wanted to make a profit. Okay, and all of this I have found out through my research, okay? So I've been doing a lot of research, as I mentioned. So, so to go back to the pigs got very sick and a lot of them died. And then it became known to the public that this happened, that pigs got so sick. Later on, humans got sick, okay? But the pigs were sick because of the high dosage of these antibiotics that they were given, all right? It's just off the charts, the levels they were given to just quickly make them well. But with humans, they ended up making a vaccine. They made a vaccine, and with that vaccine, what they did was they told people that swine flu, they called it the same thing. They called what the pigs had and what humans had swine flu. And they said that it came from the pigs, even though there was no proof that it came from the pigs, but everyone knew about all these pigs that died. And then all of a sudden, people were getting the flu. So they said it was a swine flu, it was the same thing, we need to make a vaccine. So what they did was they took cells from the dead pigs, okay, and created a vaccine. So that would never have been acceptable to the American public or to any public to know that they were creating a vaccine from dead pigs if they didn't think that that was the cause, that the pigs made them sick in the first place, so in order to treat the people, to heal them, they need to take a little bit of the pigs that were the reason why and then put it into the vaccine to then help them to overcome it. Okay? If they believed that it was unknown and then they knew that they were taking cells from a dead pig and putting into a vaccine, nobody would have gone for that. Nobody. So I believe that was intentional marketing for people to understand that that was the cause and that would be the cure. All right? But I really believe that that's not true because of all the research I've been doing, that it is impossible for a human to contract a virus that an animal has. I did also watch a video that talked about scientists who had been trying to see if they could replicate this. And what they did was they took lots of horses and they took somebody, a human, who was sick with a virus, and they had the person cough into a paper bag. And so then, of course, with a cough, it makes the virus go into the bag, and then they put the bag on top of a horse. They put it around the horse's nose and mouth and had the horse breathe it in and waited for the horse to get sick. Guess what happened? The horse didn't get sick. The horse was fine. The horse never contracted the virus. They took the same bag of the virus from the human and they put it on another horse, did the same thing, put it completely covered over the nose and the mouth, and that's how we get viruses. We get them in by sniffing them in or getting them into our mouth. That horse didn't get sick either. They kept on trying with more and more horses. None of the horses got sick. None of the horses got the virus. They could not prove that it goes across species. They tried many different tests. They could never find a way to show that it happens. So isn't that interesting that there were scientists really trying to show what people have been telling us is the fact that viruses are spread from animals to us. But when they tried to replicate it, taking a known virus, somebody who was sick with a virus, they could not replicate it. Very, very interesting, I find. Okay? So I know I've been talking a long time and this is a lot of information, but I just really want to make it clear about these myths and also to present this conversation so that we can really think this through. What makes sense about what is going on right now? Okay? And it's fine for us to disagree, but it's really important for us to really be proactive with our health and to really think things through instead of just believing everything that we are being told. All right? It's very, very important we are discerning. And again, since I mentioned I am a medium, I am also very intuitive. I have been talking to my guides about this, and they do believe what the second scientist said is that viruses do not pass among animal species. They also believe that it is liver toxicity. Okay, this is directly from my guides, and this is also my own intuition too, which I believe to be true. All right, so another myth is that viruses are spread from flies and from mosquitoes. This is a myth, okay? This is not true. So don't be worried about going outside and getting bitten by a mosquito. Do not worry about a fly coming in and spreading the virus all around. It doesn't happen that way, okay? So if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. You can send me an email at christy@thedancingcurtain.com. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Again, I'm not a scientist, so I have not done the tests myself. I have not written the articles, but I am an avid researcher, and I've been doing a lot of research on this to try to form an understanding of what's going on, okay? So as I mentioned, I really do believe there is a root cause for every illness, and once we know the root cause, then we can treat it and treat it quickly, okay? That's what happened with my illness. I had a debilitating illness for 15 years, misdiagnosed for 15 years, but the end, finally I found a doctor who believed me, did further testing, found out it was liver toxicity, heavy metals specifically. And with that information, I went to treat the liver, not all the symptoms, just the liver to get the heavy metals out. And once I did, I restored my health within 1 month, just 1 month. Okay, so I'm just going to take a quick look at my notes because I had so much I wanted to bring up with you today. Let me just make sure I have everything. Got it all in. How did I do that? That's amazing. Okay, so great. So again, let me know if you have any questions. Just as a reminder, viruses are not living organisms. They cannot travel on their own. So it is the best precaution to simply wash your hands with warm soap and water for at least 20 seconds. If you can do it longer, the better. Again, when you come inside, take a shower if you've been outside and exposed to other people. But really be mindful of what you're hearing in the news. Be discerning. Feel into what feels right. I'm not trying to spread any fear. I'm trying to empower you. I really believe this is a time of empowerment. I'm not trying to give you any fake information. Again, all this information has been researched. And also I have checked in with my guides as well. And they do want me to be as vocal as possible right now because they want me to help as many people as possible. Because they do believe there's a lot of misinformation being spread right now, and they want the truth to come to the light. So thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for watching this video series. And again, if you're interested in learning more about how to boost your immune system, you can contact me at The Dancing Curtain, www.thedancingcurtain.com, or simply send an email to Christy@thedancingcurtain.com. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a beautiful day and stay healthy. Bye-bye.